Hello, I'm Brad Addington, Chief Editor of Packaging Strategies. We've been talking to the teams participating in the Paperboard Packaging Alliance's 2025 Student Design Challenge. Today, we're talking to one of the finalist student teams from Rochester Institute of Technology. Hey, everybody, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Well, thank you.
Doing well.
Now, this year's challenge focused on a fictional pet care brand, PPA Pets, and included a unique twist. One product required packaging with lab-like functionality, testing students' ability to balance sustainability, performance, and consumer appeal. The results showcase how paperboard can meet complex packaging needs while reducing reliance on plastic. So before we get to your packing solution, maybe everybody can introduce themselves.
I'm Amy Brumlick. I am a third-year packaging science student at RIT.
Okay.
I'm Dante Verna. I'm a recently graduated industrial design student from RIT.
All right.
And I am Carlos Diaz. I'm a faculty, a professor in the Department of Packaging and Graphic Media Science at RIT, and I am one of the two mentors in this competition.
All right. It was great to meet all of you. So I guess a couple questions or a few questions about this year's competition. I guess one would be, what was your approach to designing functional, sustainable packaging and meeting this year's challenge? What were some of your key considerations?
So I think I could at least speak to the function aspect a bit. Well, in this case, the function relied a lot on the material involved itself. That I think I can speak for most of us saying that this was, well, at least for me as an industrial designer, this was an early experience working with paperboard and just learning the nature of it as a material. And the prompt gave us a lot to consider given our restrictions on that, which I think is something that allows for good design, restrictions on production, that it had to serve a couple different purposes, right? So for example, these DNA kits that we were developing, it had to be a representation of the brand on the shelf. It had to keep its contents completely secure and had to serve as a way for a consumer to take this product home with them, take samples, and then send that back to labs for testing. And this all had to be contained within one unit, wasting as little material as possible. And I believe we had to keep it at least 70% standard paperboard as opposed to corrugated materials. So as we were going through the development of this, those were kind of the constraints we had to work around for that product.
Amy or Carlos, did you want to add anything to that?
Um, I really think paperboard, if you can dream it, you can achieve it. It just is deciding how to make that happen.
All right.
All right, now I have no comments because it's on them to attack the challenge. It's on my plate to provide the resources so they can go and create.
So they can go at it and do their thing, right?
Correct.
So how did you leverage paperboard's properties to meet real-world packaging challenges? What
Paperboard is a very interesting material. Um, it's got a lot of strength properties that are really cool, especially natural craft. Um, but it's the sort of folding the two-dimensional aspect that makes it cool. Um, it's kind of like origami, a lot of people have told me. Uh, and just like making sure it folds right is important.
That's a good point.
Yeah, kind of like Amy said, at least part of the learning curve for me being newer to this material was leveraging how it folds in one direction most of the time from any angle but one direction. It's not so much something you can shape into a three-dimensional form from a single piece. So we had a lot of learning to do about connection methods, of which can be done any number of ways, and working within the space constraints of the shapes we needed to create.
I guess another question might be, what has this experience taught you about the future of packaging innovation?
Let me start and say something about that, because I think the challenge itself responds to a trend, and a trend on let's minimize the use of plastic. Plastic has a lot of very unique properties, but it might not be, I mean, but we can maybe use less of it and use it more effectively, and kind of use substrates like paper, which are more or have lesser impacts, let's say, to the environment in some ways, and also give some other interesting properties after the end of life of the product. So how can we leverage that? But the trend is, let's use less plastics. They use, for example, more paper, and I think that continues into the future of the packaging industry for the foreseeable short term and maybe mid term. I don't know if you guys have something to add to that, if I understood the question correctly.
Well, I was thinking back while you were talking to a couple times we visited paperboard suppliers throughout our process to kind of, learn about how they operate in industry. And it was fascinating for me, at least, to see just the amount of material and finish qualities that you can apply to this material beyond just appearing as we know paper to be. Because plastic is introduced a lot of the time for its properties of how finishes can be applied to it, metallics and texture and just unique colors and finishes that will draw someone to a more unique looking product. And it really surprised me the amount of ways that companies have been able to apply these properties to paperboard that kind of just removes the need for less sustainable materials in a lot of cases.
Yeah, paperization definitely is a big, term these days, and something we write about on a regular basis. So
Yep.
That's not too surprising. Well, thanks for taking the time to explain how you approached this year's challenge. I'm sure the judges are going to have a tough decision on their hands, and regardless of the outcome, it sounds like you have some promising careers in packaging.
All right. Yeah.
It's the goal.
I think so.
Hey, Brad, thank you very much for meeting with the team.
Hey, it was great to meet all of you.
Yep.
Really looking forward to November's ceremony.
Excellent. Yeah.
Today we're talking to one of the finalist student teams, the Teeth Story team at Cal Poly. Hey everybody, how are you doing?
Hello.
Hey.
Good.
Good. So before we get to your packaging solution, maybe everybody could introduce themselves.
Yeah, I could go first. Hi, I'm Natalie, and I was one of the structural designers on the Teeth Story team. And I graduated from Cal Poly in June, and I have a packaging degree.
Okay. And Maya or Jenny?
Oh, hi, my name is Jenny Martinez, and I was part of the graphics team, and I also graduated in June from Cal Poly, and I have a degree in art and design, concentrating in graphic design.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Maya Loho. I'm an industrial technology and packaging student at Cal Poly currently, and I was on the structural design team expecting to graduate next June of 2026.
All right. And Haley?
Hi, I'm Haley Groff. I was on the packaging team. I'm a food science major with a packaging minor, and my expected graduation is June of 2026.
All right. Lots of different skills there. So I guess one question would be, what was your approach to designing functional, sustainable packaging and meeting this year's challenge? What were some of your key considerations?
I could take this one. I think one of our key considerations was really having a good sense of what problem we were solving, and always tying back our brainstorming sessions and ideations back to the problem statement. So we wanted to make it obviously sustainable, but also functional. We want to make a product and package that consumers are easily ready to use because we did a lot of competitor analysis and research, and we saw a lot of pain points that consumers were leaving reviews about. And so we really wanted to target those pain points that we were seeing. So like instructions being hard to read, not being clear, maybe hard to open and stuff like that. So once we really honed down what we wanted to fix and innovate on, I think that really kind of led us through the project well. If
Did
anyone else
anybody
has anything
add
to
anything
add.
to that?
To make the product more sustainable, we definitely noticed that a lot of pet packaging used plastic that was unnecessary. And so for toys specifically, we wanted to make sure that we didn't use plastic. So we had some creative solutions to making sure the product was secure without using plastic or any unnecessary like extra materials. So that was something that we wanted to focus on. Yeah, the main thing was just looking at the competitors and seeing like what was available on the market and what was sustainable and what wasn't.
I guess another question would be, how did you leverage paperboard's properties to meet real-world packaging challenges? What were some of the benefits of that using paperboard?
I can answer that question. So for our thought process with using paperboard, it's recyclable material, it's sustainable, and it's also very flexible as well. So with our project, sorry, excuse me, but with our product, we specifically made it sure that is also multi-use, multi-purpose, and functional, where you could add that photo in of either your dog or whatever happy memories that you have with your pet, and it could be on your bookshelf as well. So that's a sustainable product that you could have for a long period of time, still being multi-purpose. And then another thing as well that we focused on with paperboard is the printing abilities for it, being able to print it one side, easy to manage, and like ship flat as well. So just all of those kind of functionality, like multi-purpose functionalities we're looking at.
Yeah, I think to build on that, I think anyone who has worked with like 2D versus 3D packaging design, there is so much more flexibility when it comes to creating prototypes, when it comes to 2D die lines. And so with that, and with our capabilities in-house at Cal Poly, we had a Kongsberg. So we could really make these prototypes really fast and kind of see what was working and what wasn't. Um, and we had, yeah, if you look at our die line, there's a lot of different aspects and a lot of details that we could really fine tune because of that.
I guess another question might be, just generally speaking, what has this experience taught you about the future of packaging innovation or packaging innovation generally? It's kind of an open one, but
I would say the main thing it showed me is just the step towards sustainability in general. Like I think that's where packaging is moving, and that's like a big consumer base and consumer want right now, just with the effects of plastic and everything on the environment. And so I think it just really taught me a lot about like how companies are moving towards more sustainable packaging and how like that's something as a competitive, like looking against competitors, like that's something that every company should be working towards. So just from a food science perspective, like I hope to go into sustainable food packaging. And so it taught me a lot about like what paperboard can, how it's a great alternative to some other forms of packaging that are less environmentally friendly.
Well, thanks for taking the time to explain how you approached this year's challenge. I'm sure the judges are going to have a tough decision on their hands. And regardless of the outcome, it sounds like you have promising careers in packaging.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out to interview us as well.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. We all appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Today we're talking to one of the finalist student teams, the Posh team from Cal Poly. Hey everybody, how are you doing?
Hello.
Hi, I'm doing good.
So before we get to your packaging solution, maybe everybody can introduce themselves. If you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I can start. My name's Dominic Parenti. I'm a fifth year at Cal Poly, majoring in industrial technology and packaging with a focus or with a concentration in packaging.
Sounds good.
Hi everyone, my name's Sophia Levin. I am also a fifth year at Cal Poly, and I'm majoring in graphic design. And yeah,
Hi everyone, my name is Sonia Andrade. I'm a recent grad from Cal Poly. I just graduated this last June, and I majored in business administration with a concentration in consumer packaging.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Ridley, and I also just recently graduated, and I was a graphic design major at Cal Poly.
All right, sounds like a strong team. So I guess one question would be, what was your approach to designing functional, sustainable packaging and meeting this year's challenge? What were some of your key considerations?
I could add some to that. So I think obviously, so the main goal is to eliminate plastics, and coming up with solutions that coming up with alternatives to that kind of pushed us into a certain direction. For example, making a tamper-resistant package, we ended up adding the perforated tear strip, which kind of then led us into the direction of kind of having our package open in a book style, which presents the process really clearly to the user. Because on top of just designing some clever alternative to avoid plastics, we also thought it was really important to make sure that it was still simple and really clear to the user.
Anybody want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think Dom really summed it up well. I think going into this design challenge, one of the main things we wanted to do was view sustainability not as a limitation, but as an opportunity for to help guide our design features. And yeah, I think Paperboard provided us with a lot of innovative solutions that wouldn't have been possible with other materials. I think the pull tab was a good example. I think another component about Paperboard that was important was the fact that it could ship flat and save on manufacturability. And I think just a lot of little design features like that kept popping up the more we did different rounds of iteration.
Kind of related, how did you leverage paperboard's properties to meet real-world packaging challenges? Anybody want to jump in on that one?
One specific example I can think of when kind of leveraging its properties was when we were designing the shipper for it, because that's more of a performance-based structure, like the primary package is a lot about aesthetics, and there's still a ton of function within that, but the shipper, we need to make sure it like succeeds in protecting the primary package. So one issue we came upon was adding air cushion cells on the side of the shipper, but they ended up being a little flimsy just because of the material we're working with. So we added some fold-in inserts into the air cells to make the structure more rigid and more protective.
It's a good strategy. And maybe more generally, what has this experience taught you about the future of packaging innovation?
Well, I could take this one. I would say working through these challenges and in such a big team, this experience definitely taught us about how we can prioritize consumer use while rethinking convenience through like a sustainability lens. Because a lot of the project focused on thinking about design wise how to make sure that everything was very readable and able to be intuitively used when going through the DNA test kit steps. And so one of those steps that we needed to take in order to actually make our packaging the most intuitive was was using the paper from the DNA test kit, the medical grade paper from the swab kit, in order to put some of our swabbing steps on it. And that actually reduced the amount of space we needed in the paperboard in the box itself. And then also was able to kind of create more of a, I guess I would say, like a sustainable solution. So I feel like that was one thing that I learned in this experience was just kind of how to make creative decisions based on, I would say, conflicts.
Yeah, material reduction is a big theme these days in packaging, so that was obviously part of your strategy. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to explain how you approach this year's challenge. I'm sure the judges are going to have a tough decision on their hands. And regardless of the outcome, it sounds like you have some promising careers in packaging.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you for taking
Thank
the
you
time
so
to
much for
talk
your
with us.
time.